Hey guys, welcome to another Faith Story. It's an absolute privilege to have Rita Quinn on today. She's a great friend of mine. We've been in the same group. We've been attending the same church for years, and she has an amazing story to tell. So I'm happy to go straight into it. Rita, so tell us a little about your background with Ivy. How long you've been attending, which site you go
Okay,
to.
sure. So I have been going to Ivy since more or less 2008, I think. And Anthony's first visit to the church and kind of first part where he's told everybody he was coming was actually my baptism. So that was a couple of months before I got married. I think it was around about April 2008. That was when I kind of, you know, I suppose took Jesus back into my heart.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. That's. I mean, so a lot of key things happened around that time. Anthony coming,
Yeah, I got
baptized,
married
getting
yeah,
married, and so you've
that's
been
right, I got
Ivy
married.
since.
Yeah, in Ivy Central. Yeah, that's
Great.
right.
And how's that experience been for you? How's that helped really kind of hone and dial in your faith?
I think for me, it's been really amazing because I got brought up as a Catholic in Ireland, so in Northern Ireland actually. So I understood obviously the concept of God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus, but it was very much about God and Mary, that side of things for me. Also, I grew up in the Troubles, the tail end of the Troubles, and it just wasn't a very, I suppose, good example because it was all about religion. But really, for me, Ivy is about faith. That's what I felt. That's why I wanted to be baptized there. I felt it was all about faith and about Jesus. And I just feel like I never really lost my belief in God, but I strayed away from the strangulation of the religion side of things. But now I feel I really know, I really feel I know God, and I really feel I can hear Him, and you know, I don't always know what He wants me to do, but I know what He doesn't want me to do, that kind of
Yeah.
way. I just feel like the guidances and other things in my life are very clear from Him now.
Sure, sure. Now you just mentioned something then, and I'd be really interested in your view on you said religion and faith. So how do what's the difference for you in those two terms?
For me
Mm,
personally, growing
mm,
up, it was I was told and dictated to. But I really feel with faith, you live in the love and you exemplify that love. It's you show the love that God and Jesus has for you to others. It's all about loving thy neighbor as thyself. It's a really important thing for me. And it's interesting. I shared that before that there's I remember drinking tea once, the yogi teas that they have silly little expressions on them, and the cinnamon tea. And I remember reading it and said, if you can't see God in everything, you can't see God at all. And that's what my faith has really taught me, that Jesus is everywhere, God is everywhere, and it's just seeing it on people. You
mm.
don't always have to like people; you just have to love them. you know, that's what
I
I think.
like
I know
I like that. You don't have to like him, you just have to
you
love
just gotta love them. Yeah.
him. It's great. And Rita, I know that you have been through like a really difficult and challenging time, and we're not talking about the pandemic here. Um, we're talking about suffering from a serious illness. So, would you like to share a little bit about that?
I think I'd like to it'll give people hope. There's kind of two. Oh God, it sounds really bad. I sound very. I sound like I'm riddled in illness. In 2002, I got diagnosed with a very, very rare autoimmune disease called Wegener's granulomatosis. Probably the nearest thing to it is lupus. So it was my immune system was killing me. So I had a lot of heavy treatment for that. So I was off work for a while and then back and then off. And then in 2018, January, well, it was around about December actually, 2017. I was really annoying, sty in my eye, and I just had a bad relapse and I'd only gone back to work. I was only back at work 6 weeks and I had the sty that just would not go away. Anyway, long story short, after loads of investigation, it turned out to be stage 4 high grade non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is cancer, blood cancer, type of blood cancer. So that was very kind of, I suppose, a bit of a shock. But this is the first time I really, really heard God speak to me, where I actually knew that I knew it was Him. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you can sometimes people come up to you and say, God told me this, and you're thinking, no, that can't be true. You know what I mean? I knew this was true. I was in the bathroom and I remember, like, I was just praying, and I think I'd just come home from the PET scan, and it was when the scan had like lit up my whole body. It was the cancer was everywhere. It was in my liver, my lungs, my kidney, I think my stomach, obviously my neck. So they did a double operation on it as well. But I just really heard God say to me that, you know, this is going to be awful, but you're going to be okay. And from that moment on, whatever they were telling me, I just knew. And funny, when they told me the actual result, before I heard his voice, when they told me the grading level and you know, what stage it was at, I just said, the actual consultant said to me, you couldn't believe how well I took it. And I said, it's absolutely fine. I said, I've got Jesus. I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew whatever the outcome was going to be, it was going to be eternity, hopefully, with unicorns and rainbows, or it was going to be, you know what I mean, or I was going to survive and have a really nice buzz cut. It was going to be one of the two. So
that is amazing.
Yeah, and then
to have that like kind of peace from the very beginning.
From the beginning.
Before anybody else kind of told you from their scientific methods and the results of all the tests, God spoke to you, gave you that reassurance.
Yeah, and that's one thing I noticed, because obviously it wasn't an easy ride. It really wasn't, because I kept getting sepsis and I responded to the treatment, but the treatment was a thing called R-CHOP, so you have a lot of chemotherapies mixed together. And because of all the immunotherapy and chemotherapy I'd had before for my autoimmune disease, because it was treated the same way, it kind of just, my body just became, it destroyed me. You know, I could barely walk, and I was just, it was horrific, the pain, the bone marrow kind of pain that you get. It wasn't, you know, it was pretty bad, but the sepsis kept coming and coming. But you know what? It's funny, I knew it was bad, and there were days that I had fed up. There were days I definitely got fed up, but I was an impatient a lot at Christie. Spent a lot of time at Christie and Woodenshaw, actually, and a bit of time at MRI as well. Actually, I've been a complete hospital tourist. So, and I got to meet a lot of people, you know, which was really interesting. And one thing I noticed about people who haven't got faith is the fear. There's just so much fear in people's lives. You know, the fear of the unknown, the fear of death, the fear of everything around them. But I had a real peace about everything. And there was a woman who was next to me in Christie. When you get taken in with the infection, which was permanent for me, they all knew me by name. It was quite funny. I was like Norm in Cheers. I don't know if you remember when he walked in, everybody would say hello. It got like that in Christie. It was actually quite funny in the end. But I remember one night I got taken in to OAU, which is the Oncology Assessment Unit. It's kind of like the A&E unit for cancer. And I went in, and there was a lovely lady beside me, but she kept asking me about my faith. And she kept saying, how do you still believe? She said, you've got really, you know, you're in a really bad position. I was really ill. And she's going, how do you still believe? And I just said to her, I just know he's real. I feel the love. I feel it's like somebody hugging me all the time. And I know that I can just lean into him, you know, like that, trust in the Lord with all your heart, that it says in Proverbs. You know, I really felt that. And then, you know, so I was able to, that was where I could do my evangelizing. And I think I shared that at Ivy Didsbury. It's like, I love people who go out in the street. I think that's great, but that's not me. It's not because I'm embarrassed. It's just because God has me in places that are the most, like I talked about him in the most strangest of circumstances. All my consultants knew I believed in Jesus. All of them knew that I had a strong faith. So there wasn't that worry there. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, Rita. And I know you personally, and you're such a bubbly and bright character, and I can almost imagine that kind of glowing off you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, influencing all the people around you in all the hospitals that you kind of toured around, you said. So that, I mean, how long did that period go on for?
That went on for quite a while. So it's only like, that went on from probably, so everything started kind of just before Christmas, but it actually really kicked off in the January 2018. My last bout of sepsis was March 2019, the following year, even though my treatment had stopped way before that, but I was beaten. And the worst thing was, back then, I think I ate my way through it all as well. I'd be a real comfort eater. You know, the way people would turn to drugs or they turned to alcohol, I always turned to food throughout my life. And I actually just, I remember being in the hospital and just thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I remember like I wasn't, it was a really hard time because I had no strength. I just had no energy. I was relying on using the wheelchair a lot if I wanted to go out and stuff like that. So I had been to a 12-step program before, but like Alcoholics Anonymous, but for food, it's called Overeaters Anonymous. So I found, I went back to that as well after that last bout of sepsis, because I just thought I can't keep eating, because I felt like I had to honor God. This might sound strange, but or might not make sense to you, but God honored me. I stayed alive, and every bout of sepsis He brought me through. There was 9 in total, and I was like, I got through them all, and I just thought, to honor Him now, I've got to sort out my eating, because that had gone crazy, absolutely crazy. So that's been a real good thing for me in lockdown as well, because I've been, Overeaters Anonymous is actually online now all the time. There's loads of Zoom meetings, so that's been amazing, going all over the world, and you know, yeah, just getting comfort from that. And it's based on Christianity, although they call it the God of your understanding, but for me it's God, you know, that helps you through. So that's been really, really good. And I took retirement then in Christmas 20, I always forget what year we're in, 2020. So Christmas 2019 just passed. I took retirement from work because I had been beaten, you know, my body was wrecked. So we went away on our first holiday just as lockdown hit, so we got stuck in Malaysia. Well, we didn't get stuck. We had to come home in an emergency flight, which was fine.
Okay.
So,
Well, there are better places to be stuck on.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. I know. 5-star Malaysia was fine. So it was good. And that was lovely to celebrate that. But when I came back, obviously I had to shield. I'm still classed as high risk, so I had to shield constantly. So then I decided to try, because I wanted to get fitter. So the Joe Wicks, I just want to clarify, I was not doing the PE every day. It was the Joe Wicks beginners that I was doing.
Okay.
I mastered the seniors version, which was like 15 minutes long, and then upgraded myself to the beginners. But then I actually realized, I mean, this is miraculous. This is nothing short of miraculous. Like this time, when I started that, when lockdown started the year before, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk that far. And if I really couldn't walk any distance. I couldn't get across Christie even. It was awful. You know, when I went in for appointments, it was real struggle. And then I went out. It must be about, I don't know, I can't remember when it is, because everything's just merging into 1 month. But I think about 6 weeks ago, when they lifted the lockdown, I got to go. I live really near Alex Park. And I went and I walked around the park. And the last time I was in that park, I had stage 4 cancer, and I was in a wheelchair. So it was just, I cried. I'm actually getting emotional. I cried the whole way around, but it was tears of joy, because I just knew God was with me, and I didn't think I'd make it round. And when I came back, it looked like the Poseidon adventure. It just looked like somebody had thrown a bucket on me. I was a mess, but it was lovely. Yeah. And I've been out every day. Wow. I've been out every day since. So I go around every morning. I put on a podcast, or I listen to a bit of worship music, or I listen to normal music, and I just, something that's going to get me around the whole park.
That's amazing.
It's only 1.5 kilometers, but to me, it's everything, you know, being able to do that.
What a transformation, Rita.
Yeah.
God is faithful. God is so faithful, you know.
I just wrote down Luke 1:37, for nothing will be impossible with God. And it's so true. Like, I never thought I would be here. I've lost quite a bit of weight in lockdown, and just, you know, and I don't have that side of my addiction as well, that self-loathing and fear around my size, and self-loathing of me has gone. It's completely gone. It's just, I'm totally trusting in God. You know, I know it's been hard for a lot of people. I know lockdown has been hard, but in some ways, I mean, it's awful. It's horrific what's happening. But for me, it's been such a blessing with my walk with Jesus, because I really feel like me and him have really buddied up, and he's there all the time, and I'm just able to talk to him, and you know, and also still have the benefit of going to church. I still always tune in. I don't always tune in live now, I have to be honest, because I love being able to tune in just when I get that quiet time.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure. Wow. I mean, Rita, that's a powerful testimony, and this is just over the last couple of years or so.
Yeah.
You going back to, you know, your period in hospital, and it sounded like you had really tough times, you know, and I can't imagine what that's like when your body's feeling like it's on the brink of giving up, and how you keep your spirit strong. Um, what was that? What was the kind of the feelings that you had during that time? Was it stable? Was it steady? What was your
Well, just
conversation?
before, I suppose before the cancer, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I lost both parents back to back. So people always say to me, you know that I always have a thing where I always imagine the worst case scenario. So if something bad happens, I always think, well, nobody died, and therefore that's okay. Do you know what I mean? But I think when my mum and dad died, it took me so long. It crucified me in many ways, especially my mum's death. I was very close to my parents, but my mum and I were real buddies because I don't have children of my own. So I never, that love that would transfer normally to a child never happened. Um, not that you love your parents less, but obviously when you have kids, it's slightly different. We weren't able to have children. So um, going into hospital, but because mum had passed away, the worst thing that could have possibly happened to me happened. To me, that was the worst thing. So the cancer and everything with that was okay. I think one thing I always kept, I'd gone away from the 12-step program until the very end of all my treatment, but I never forgot it's one day at a time. And I always think if I had lived in fear, I was living in the future. All I could do for that moment was literally, I mean, most of the time I never called I think an ambulance was called once. I usually, because we live really near Christie, so it was easy just for Alan, my husband, to drive me. But it was just, even when I was going with very high temperatures and, I was very tachycardic and stuff, I just knew that, I don't know, there was just, I guess the fear, it's not so much the fear, it's only when it was the chest stuff that was difficult, when it's the breathing. But I don't know, it was hard. There was tears, there was pain, but I guess there was something in the back of my mind that, well, there was God. I
Mm,
can't dress it up as any other way.
yeah,
Jesus was there, he was holding me up.
yeah,
And not everybody survives. I think that's the worst. I think that's the hardest thing about the whole journey is sitting in one of the first wards I was in, every single woman, there was 6 of us in a ward. We had great fun. I was very, very immobile, and they'd got me a Zimmer frame. It was horrible. It was an old granny Zimmer frame. And I was so sick, but when I went to the toilet went to have a shower, when I came out, they'd pimped it up the toilet roll and like loads of masks and very silly things to make me feel better. And there's kind of an intimacy with cancer. So because nobody else understands unless you're going through it, so you're able to talk deeper to them. But the hardest thing was every single woman in that ward now is dead. And subsequently, that happened to me a lot, where a lot of people would die while I was in. And I found that really difficult, particularly, that was the only time that I ever questioned God, particularly people who had young children. I was thinking, you have this terrible guilt. Nobody ever talks about it, but you have this awful guilt that you survive. And that's quite common in cancer patients. You think, oh, why did I survive? Why, for example, did Diane Oxbury die? People you see, I'm using her as an example because that was the first time I went into Christie's without a wheelchair. So the night she died, ironically. So it's that kind of, that's hard to fathom, and that's hard to
sure.
explain to people who aren't Christian,
Yeah, sure.
you know.
And I mean that's a deeply personal thing, and yeah, wow. How have
An
you
open book.
and how have you kind of wrestled with that up to now? Is that just an open question that you think, okay, just accept it? Have you made any peace with that?
I don't know. It's hard because it was kind of like, I suppose recently in our own church, a few people have died. Dave Clark passed away, and it's kind of like, that must have been one of God's biggest own goals. I couldn't get my head around that at all. It was like, how can somebody so full of Jesus? So I guess it's all about trust. I can't see the bigger picture. I can't see what he's mapped out for everybody. I can't see what's mapped out in front of us. I really hope in my heart that the people who didn't know Jesus came to know him in that last second, or came to believe, or saw something, or heard something, and that he was in their hearts, because he is there. He's there for everybody, whether you believe or not. It's just, you can come to believe at any time in your life. My husband doesn't believe, but it was very interesting. We had a talk about it years ago, and I just remember thinking it was God talking to me. He said, you don't know what's going to happen in the last second of my life. And I remember being completely amazed by this, because I thought, wow, That's incredible. Do you know what I mean? That he would say, as a non-believer, he would say that. I guess you just, I just, it's all about trust. It's just trusting that God has got a plan and that He can see it, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't.
yeah,
And I've made it,
100%.
I've made a right shambles of some of the stuff I've done in the past. So, you know, but it's hard. It's hard. That's really hard to come to terms with. Particularly, there was one particular woman who was just gorgeous, and she had 3 young children, and I couldn't. And they had made some, not at Christie, but previously before she got there, they'd made some mistakes in diagnosis, and I just think, oh, you know,
You've highlighted such like, I think you've just clearly described the what faith is about, right? Understanding that there's a limit to our understanding of what
hmm
God is up to, and then having that faith and that trust to know that His ways are higher than ours. And
yeah, it's that part in Indiana Jones. The part is the temple. It's the Temple of Doom. Harrison Ford was my first crush. I'd like everybody to know that he was my first like famous crush. But and I got to wear his hat, the real one. But that's another story for another time. There, that part where they're looking for whatever it is, one of the stones, and he talks about he's standing on a precipice
yeah, I
where,
know
and
the
it's
one.
there's nothing there, and
Yeah,
he says you have to believe, and it's like he kind of moves forward and steps out and then throws the stones out first, and it's there. I guess that for me is faith. Faith is seeing something that that you are not seeing something that is there, but you can't describe or touch really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
often.
Wow, it's beautiful, Rita. Thank you for sharing what you've shared so far.
No, it's no problem.
With lockdown, then, it's been such a, I've had so many conversations with people during lockdown, and everybody's had a very different experience depending on what their job is and where they are at in life. What's been your experience of lockdown?
Lovely. I've loved it, but it's because I have a head that is really busy, busy, busy all the time with stuff in my head, and I had a life like that. I was always meeting people for lunch or chatting to people on the phone, keeping in touch with my family and whatever, and my friends. Obviously, coming from Ireland, I would still have family and friends over there as well. But I think lockdown was an opportunity for me, especially with Overeaters Anonymous, to kind of just center myself and really, really go deeper with God. It meant that I could hear Him properly, or I could feel His direction in my life. I get up, I do my exercises, walk around the park actually, which is incredible. That to me is honestly, that feels miraculous. It really does to me, from where I've come from. And get on a meeting, share about the stuff around food and stuff like that, which has been brilliant now. And I've put down any kind of sugar, any rubbish. I don't eat sugar anymore. I don't eat crisps, any crap. I just don't eat. If I'm allowed to say that word. Any rubbish I don't eat, because it's just not, it's just not good for me. And I'm trying to honor God as best I can. I'm still coming to terms with my swearing, but that's a work in progress. And always will be. I think I did well for all my swear jars are filled, as you can imagine. But it's just been really good. My husband's been working from home, and obviously I'm retired now, so it's just been really nice. It's been a nice kind of, we watch, the TV doesn't go on the day. There's a lot of reading, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of listening to sermons. I'm doing a wee bit of a thing with Rick Warren, in and out of that, listening to some worship, but also dancing around the living room to really stupid music. It's just great. It's
Love
been
it.
nice way for me, and
I
a
love
few
it.
friends have been over for social distance coffee, and I try and get to my grow group as much as I can. So I also had another cancer scare in lockdown as well, so that was a bit, challenging, because I had to get out and have a scan. I had to have a biopsy and all, and thank God they're only pre-cancer, so it was really good. That was
Great.
a relief. But that was the most nerve-wracking thing, actually, in the sense that was a bit of a, oh no, you've got to be joking. The way it says God can only give you what you can deal with. I remember thinking, all right, I really think I've had enough now. But it's not up to me, is it? It's never up to me.
Wow,
I'm
great.
hoping
So,
there's, sorry, I was going to say I'm hoping there's a lottery one in there somewhere. Yeah.
I love to know then, Rita. I mean, you're retired. Alan's still working, I presume.
Mhm.
Have you thought about? I know we're still in lockdown. There's still a lot of uncertainty going on. But it sounds like you had like really pivotal experiences over the last couple of years, 18 months.
Mm.
Have you thought about, well, what's next for you, and what you would like to do?
I try and keep it in the day because they teach you in the 12 steps one day at a time. And I think God, I know He wants me to, I think God probably wants you to plan your life, but it's really about praying to Him, isn't it? It's really about asking for direction. And that's what I do now. I stop and ask Him because like I've said to you, I don't always know what He wants me to do, but I know what He won't want me to do, you know. But yeah, there's been a few things. I'd love to do something around cancer. My brother canoed over from Ireland to England for Maggie's, you know, the cancer centre in Manchester, and I'd really love, they're all over the country. I'd love to do something that would help other people. Maybe I have thought about potentially counselling people with cancer. Would love that, but I'd have to get qualified, and my energy levels are only slightly going up now compared to before I was. So I just have to take my time and see I think He's got me exactly where I should be at the minute with regards to helping people through the 12 steps, because I mentor's probably the better word. I sponsor people for people, but it's kind of like mentoring them through the steps. So that's been really, really rewarding. There's a few things, and I have thought about Ivy as well, but that's probably a conversation we should have outside of here. But I would love to do more kind of around that as well, and because I really love people and I'm very good at talking to people, and I love that. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't bother me where your background. You know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
I'm at ease with a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, Rita. And just
Well,
the
I
way
think
that
maybe I force myself on them. I don't know.
no, I mean your heart to serve, in your kind of outward focus, and that coming from your own personal experience, you know. And I'm kind of here looking in, seeing that is just so faithful how you're using your own experience as a story to bless and encourage other people. That, you know, you're not leaning away from it, you're fully leaning into it. You know, you're owning it all so that you can continue to bless and just,
Yeah.
you know, shape other people's lives through what you've gone through.
And I think it's really important. I mean, you know, I think love is one of the most important things in the world, you know. Well, it is the most important other than God, you know, but God is love to me.
Hmm.
So it's that way about, you know, like I said to you, you don't, I don't always have to like somebody, but I've got to love them. I just show them that love and respect that I would, you know, a sick friend kind of thing. It's got to be about love for me. And I think it's really important to help others because I have an opportunity to do that. I don't have small kids running around all the time. I don't have an excuse really. Just a really annoying cat. And the husband, obviously. He's not so annoying, actually. He's nice.
But you love your cat, really. Every cat owner does, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. Secretly, I
Yeah.
really do. But we have a very indifferent relationship. He loves my husband. He follows my husband around and then kind of just looks despairingly at me, which is quite hurtful, but I'm over it now. I'm over it. It's been 2 years.
You've dealt with worse.
Yeah, cat's a cat, we call it. But yeah.
Rita, one final question here is for people who, you know, may be finding things difficult, maybe they're going through illness or some physical pain or ailment. What would you say, having been through what you've been through? How could you encourage them? What will be your message to them?
Psalm 46, God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. I think that's really important to remember. And I think if you are, I mean, I'm happy to talk to anybody as well who might have been in the same position as me, because I think that's really important. It's really easy to say, you know, I'm an apple to an orange, you know, but an orange is never going to understand what an apple is and vice versa. Do you know what I mean? So I'd be happy to talk to anybody, but I think it's just focusing on God and knowing that He's there. Don't think that He's abandoned you. I thought, you know, I couldn't accept unconditional love except from my parents and my husband. I couldn't even accept it from God. It's only recently that that's happened. It's really because I thought, why would I be so special to Him? Why me? You know, obviously. But now I just really focus on Him. I really trust that He's got my best interests in heart. Even though you are going through times of trouble, it's better to be with Him and be conscious of Him and lean into Him than to have nothing, because nothingness is just a void. an empty vessel, and it's horrible. And I have been there in the past, and it's just not somewhere I'd ever want to be.
Mm. Mm.
You know.
Amazing. Thank you. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Rita, thank you so much for your time. It's been great. I've missed this. We really should hang out more.
Yeah, I know. We should. Actually. We should.
Yeah, and you're an amazing person, an incredible blessing. And I pray that God will continue to show you clearly the opportunities I know He's got for you in the future, for you to use this to continue to glorify Him through loving, not necessarily liking, all the people that comes into your life.
Actually, do you know what? It's a very small number of people I dislike. Most of them are political, so it's not a problem. You know?